Grace and peace, Saint Luke. I just got off the plane with my grandson Luke. We were in New York City the last 3 days with a wonderful grandparents' trip. We have a custom in our family that when our grandchildren turn 12 years old, they get a trip to New York City, to see where Papa and Grandma lived for 35 years, did ministry, raised their parents. And you all have those kind of traditions with your grandchildren too, don't you? It's something wonderful about humanity, about being created as a human being, that gifts are given across the generations. We certainly saw that at the play, the real story of Red Riding Hood. How delighted the parents and grandparents were to see their children, and how delighted their children were, and looking around, seeing if they were there, and smiling and when they caught their attention. This is so important. These traditions, these ways of being in the world as children, parents, and grandparents. Well, Luke and I had a ball. We went to Times Square. We walked across the Brooklyn Bridge. We went to a Yankees-Red Sox baseball game. I won't say who won. We went on the Staten Island Ferry. We went to Chinatown. There was a subway across the street from the apartment we stayed with our good friends, just north of the George Washington Bridge, and we didn't see the inside of that apartment except to sleep. We had such a wonderful time. And in that we bonded, and of course we talked, and these conversations are what we remember. I remember, I've told you this before, fishing with my grandpa in northern Wisconsin. And all of a sudden, my bobber's in the water, and he looked at me apropos of nothing and simply said, "You know, Stephen, the only death you ever have to be afraid of is behind you in your baptism." And he went on fishing. Well, that stayed with me. Didn't know how to process it when I was 10 years old, but I certainly did when I was at ground zero, and remembered that we are all buried already. Do you not know that you've been buried with Christ by baptism unto death, so that as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, you too might live in newness of light? And so we have these chapters in our lives that we keep coming back to. And I just want this, my last video, to be a love letter to you, Saint Luke. For you have been a place where I can share in the life of grandparents and parents and children and grandparents. You've been a place where I can share the wonderful Saint Luke tradition, where people who went to school now come back to be married, or people who were married here now come back when a loved one dies. A place, an anchor, where gifts continue to be given across the generations. And I want you to know how much it means to me and my family that you welcomed us. You allowed us, and you allowed me to be your pastor. And we'll have a lot of memories. What started out as an interim ministry has been 4 years. And in that time, we've had a listening season where we listened to each other and heard hopes, disappointments, triumphs, aspirations. Around what we heard, we crafted a strategic plan. We've moved from wondering if we were going to keep going after many losses, to welcoming a new principal, to being strong in a parish in Lakeview. In that time, we've also weathered a pandemic and reinvented church. So much that we've done together. And I know that there are children who will look back on this time and maybe remember a smile from Pastor Bouman, or a hug, or a word of encouragement. I hope so, because I've certainly received so many of those from you. So as I rest up from just getting off the plane with my grandson, and as we get ready tomorrow for our closing service for Saint Luke Academy, I just want to tell you all what Luke said to me last night. You know, Papa, I love you. And God loves us all.